I want to start at the beginning of your career. And I know you had a start in dance, and I'd love to hear more about that.
Okay, well, like many people many years ago in real estate, we come in through the back door.
Yeah.
And I moved from Tennessee as a dancer to come up here. My brother was actually in commercial real estate. And I injured my back, and I was doing what many artists do, slinging drinks.
Yeah.
And somebody was like, "You'd be so great in real estate." And she's like, "Call my friend." I called her friend. He was like, "Do you want a job in real estate?" I have a desk, a phone. And I was like, I called my brother. I was like, "Donald, I just got a job in real estate." And he's like, "Great. And do you know that that's commission only?" I was like, "Oh, no." So my first year in real estate, I made $8,400. So I'll share that with you. But the rest is history.
Did you have a specific style of dance that you did?
I danced for two small jazz companies, musical. I did a lot of musical theater, but more modern. I studied with Alvin Ailey and Martha Graham, and I had two small dance companies that I toured with down south.
I feel like a lot of actor theater people transition into real
This
estate.
is
I don't
true.
think that's an uncommon trope. But sorry.
Yes. Well, I was just going to say that I think we all kind of, it's a stage.
The world's a stage.
The world is a stage. And in your careers where you thrive and if you find passion, it's a business. Real estate is a business of people. And so to have a privilege of this process for people, and it feels important and purposeful.
So you were talking about those first few years being an adjustment. Obviously, it's not a consistent income. How did you stay motivated in a kind of unsteady career?
I think that first of all, I didn't know what I was doing. And what I would say is that if you have will and a high level of work ethic, the skill will come.
Right.
And, a lot of it was, first of all, I'm Southern. We don't talk about money. And the first thing that you do is you're like, "Hi, how are you? How much do you make? What do you have? What are you spending?"
Yeah.
And it's still weird. And so my Southern accent, I would be like, "Well, all I need is another $5,000.
There's a charm to it, for sure. Is there a deal from early on that you remember that kind of shaped the way that you handle your business now, do you feel?
No, I think that, it's important that we always, for me, the philosophy of if I'm not learning, I stop living.
Right.
So even after 35 years, I love when I have an opportunity to go, I might not have done it that way. So learning how to do things differently, but also continuing to learn. I mean, honestly, my first deal, I got a phone call from an attorney that I now still work with. It was a $63,000 walk-up, and she was like, "How's the board package going?" And I was like, "What's a board package?"
Yeah.
It was $63,000, and it was 35 years ago. And she's like, "Well, this is a co-op, And I was like, "I'm sorry, what's the difference in a co-op?"
Oh, you really didn't know.
I really didn't know what I was doing. Listen, I'm a girl from Tennessee, and I was a dancer, and
obviously figured it
while
out.
I just didn't quite remember like those differences, you do have to fake it till you make it.
Absolutely.
But what I would also say is, thankfully, gracious people say, this is a co-op, and you need to do this board package. Why don't you send me, what you have? I have some letters of references. This attorney was so amazing, who has been a part of my life ever since.
Has it been rewarding to now kind of take on that mentorship role for other people, like on your team?
Absolutely. I would say in my 3+ decades, I have brought at least 80 people into real estate.
Wow.
People that were like, "I'm stuck. I'm not fulfilled. You look like you love what you're doing." And I was like, some days are not great days.
Of course.
But if you don't mind working hard and you love people and you find, to me, being of service jazzes me, and it is really never the same, and so that diversity is really fulfilling to me.
I'd love to talk a little bit about your development advising portion of your career. So can you walk us through, like someone who doesn't necessarily know how that works, how you go from concept to completion when it comes to advising a developer?
Well, I would say that my first deal that I did was the location. It was a taxi company that sold their parking space, which was where Taxi, the show, was filmed out of. So this was at 534 Hudson Street. And I was referred by a commercial broker to the developer. And, you know, we walked in and he had already developed 54, I think it was 74 studios, 1 bedrooms, and it was on Charles and Hudson. And I was like, what are you doing? You can't do this. And he was like, what? And I was like, you can't do this. I mean, the market needs 3 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. And he was like, so how many development projects have you done? I was like, none. But
intuition.
I know people, and I know what this location needs. So they scrapped the whole thing, and we made 22 units or 24 units, and it was all 3 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. And we sold them off paper. But one of the greatest parts of the phasing of these projects is sort of helping them analyze what they need to be able to pay for it in order to be profitable, but understanding what the street needs and recognizing those people trends. And that is where I thrive. I also am really good at floor plans. So I've put together teams for a number of projects. And I think that the most fulfilling part of that is the community of people that come together, because each development project has a different personality. And I'm just wrapping up 393 West End Avenue on 79th Street, and that's a conversion, and it's been incredibly fulfilling to not only put the finishes together, but most of all, the community of people that come together.
How do you balance the emotional aspect, the creative aspect, with the real financial reality, which is part of a development?
I think that I have a philosophy, and I operate as a developer's broker.
Right.
I really feel strongly about being conservative and finding money as time goes on. And so the balance is that you have to have the hook. You have to not be apologizing for your finishes. You can't control, when you live in a vertical city, you're going to have, compromised views or better layouts and less interesting layouts. But that's part of the street value that we bring as brokers to the table.
Definitely. And I mean, you can't change a layout. You can't change. Well, I mean, you can,
you
but
can. I mean, look, I can't change rolling out of bed and being at a funky location.
Right.
So then you have to find, sometimes you need to value engineer that. You have to value engineer the finishes. I mean, I built stuff on 240 East 10th Street above the Theater for the New City, and there was no comp to even use. Same with 50 Madison Avenue. And when you become an anchor for a neighborhood, it becomes the flourish. So those decisions that you make, you have to be selective, because sometimes you can't spend, the highest end of finishes in a location that's untested.
So I thought it was interesting looking at your listings that you kind of have a very diverse page in terms of luxury properties. You represent first-time buyers. How do you kind of adjust your marketing when it comes to properties of different price ranges, all of that? Like, do you adjust your strategy?
I've had people, as I teach classes, or if I'm, just new brokers coming into the business, like, how can I be $1 million listing, $1 million broker?
Right.
And I never operated from that philosophy. I just wanted to be of service. In fact, it's been very, very challenging to say no. I told you I just sold something for $337,000. And that being said, that's a person that I have done 4 other transactions with. And I guess it probably would have been better business to refer that out. But when you have a team, the fact that I have listings from $337,000 to $16 million, I get a bird's eye view of the market at all times that is trend. I'm able to see those trends.
When you're promoting these properties online, obviously there's a lot of digital noise everywhere. So how do you differentiate a property when everybody's kind of posting the same type of content?
The way that I approach my marketing is really analytically, but it's really, I always refer to the 3 Ps when I'm talking to my owners. We have to have preparation, presentation, and pricing.
Yeah.
And those are the biggest launching pad for the proper marketing. And the market will come to you. And so I find that if I start with that as a foundation and I help them prepare their homes, we have in-house somebody who does a lot of staging. We facilitate, and I've had my driver take more loads to Housing Works than I could ever even count. But that preparation,
Right.
and by the way, that's a double-edged sword, because I've had people who have, 3,800 square foot homes that we spend 3 months helping them prepare their home, and they're like, I love my home. I'm not ready to sell yet. But it's all about being of service.
Right.
So I now lost my thought on that question.
More importantly, did you invent the 3 Ps, or was that a thing?
No, it's really my thing I've always thought of.
Because there's so many of those little, like,
Acronyms
location, like, there's so many little...
But-
you got to
but
coin that. You got to, like, trademark
there
it, I
you
think.
go. I do think that it is a foundation for how you're going to launch successfully, and that's where the partnership with your owner matters.
Are you a broker that thinks a lot about storytelling when it comes to a property?
I think I am. I usually have a story because I do so much repeat business. I mean, in my 35 years, I've had some clients that I've done 9 transactions for.
So you really know the history of...
And I've got listings now that I'm selling for the 4th time. So talking about the history about the previous owner, it makes it familiar, and it helps me to help somebody envision how they could live here, because how the current owner has it set up was very different than the previous owner. And that kind of conversation it just helps me engage, whether it's my buyer or somebody else's. Sometimes I talk too much, but imagine that.
No. Do you have an example of maybe a particularly creative marketing strategy that you used that ended up, selling a property?
I don't believe, honestly, that there are any tricks. I believe in grounded data points that will educate. Listen, I can't control who comes in to partner with me. Often I've had agents that it's some, their client is their mom's best friend's sister, and they're 3 minutes in the business like I was on my first deal. And so I have just the same responsibility to educate that person, provide them with the comps if they don't have access to them. And that collaboration is probably the best marketing that I can do for the philosophy of partnering with me in business.
Well, when you're representing a buyer, how do you help them act strategically to get a property that they're really interested in without overpaying? Like, how do you advise?
Data. Knowledge is always power. And, for anybody that's listening to this that's been in the business for not very long, what I will say is that buyers will come, they're here today, sellers are here today and gone tomorrow sometimes, but your colleagues, that is the relationship that should always be considered, because I can pick up the phone for any listing in the city that's in contract and say, hey, what are you in contract for? And they will share that with me because I've come from a generous place for 35 years. And so having that ability to give the texture of what's going on with the sellers helps me to strategize for my buyers to help them figure out where they have leverage and where they have to let go of leverage.
I feel like a lot of times when you go into a property, it's all staged and pretty, and so there's an immediate appeal that draws somebody to want to buy it. How do you advise, okay, this is a better investment than something else?
Well, I think that we have to pay close attention, and certainly I know at your law firm, looking and analyzing financials, looking at what capital improvements need to happen in buildings, understanding the buying power that a maintenance gives you or takes away from you. That is, it's like marrying. You marry your property and you date your rate. You have the same philosophy around your maintenance. Your baseline maintenance is what gives you your buying power for today, but you also have a long-term future in front of it. So, for example, I'm in the middle of negotiating on something that it's a 2-bedroom in the village, and it's got a $5,800 maintenance, where the average maintenance in a co-op is $3,400. How do you monetize that?
Exactly.
It's a $400,000 mortgage. That's what a $400,000 mortgage is. So, explaining to my buyer that if you get this at a great deal today, you are going to still have to live with that maintenance in a different market, possibly. But it's how you look at prioritizing your choices, because buyers certainly have them today.
Now, more seller focused, what is your process for pricing a property to attract buyers while also obviously getting the most that you can get for your seller?
I think I said it earlier, where we talk about preparation, presentation, and pricing. When I'm doing my analysis work, I don't know, I wish I could find a shorter way of doing it. Thank God for Urban Digs. Shout out to John and Noah.
Right, yeah.
But looking at that analysis, and I go further to not just what's sold and what's active. I make the phone calls to every active listing that is the closest comp to those brokers and say, do you have any offers? You made a price reductions. How has that been since you dropped the price last week? You've been on the market for 38 days. That intel and that texture completely drives the final recommendations that I make on pricing. In addition to, as I mentioned earlier, also being able to pick up the phone and call almost any broker and say, what are you in contract for? It's not public information, so I am real-time market texture that even Market Proof or Urban Digs doesn't even have. So I feel that is really a valuable way to nail pricing properly.
Do you find that most sellers can be a bit unrealistic when it comes to pricing?
Often. Why? That's why knowledge is your power and your friend. Because look, at the end of the day, I can't tell you how many times I can say to an owner, I cannot make up the market.
Yeah.
If you want to come on at this number, I respect that, and I'm happy to launch this way. That said, in 10 days, if I said, mark my words, we will have 3 appointments, as opposed to if we come in here, we will probably have 15. And the first 30 days, that's your market. That is your market of your educated buyers. And so it has to be a back and forth and a strategy that they feel a part of.
I was going to say, I spoke to an agent who said within the first week they can tell if the price is right. Is that?
I think that's a fair assessment.
I was overhearing your schedule before, and I got major secondhand anxiety. So I want to know how you possibly manage running a team and having a family and life and sleep with your very busy schedule.
Well, I'm wearing a Whoop. Shout out to Whoop, because it tells me when I need to go to sleep and if I slept too much or not enough, and I've never slept too much. But for literally, my kids will be 22 next Sunday and 19, and I don't think I've slept through the night. And I average about 3 to 4 hours. So that is one way, but the easier, softer way is having a village of an amazing team that we lean on each other's strengths and cover our weaknesses. And, it's like you were listening to my schedule and I was like, where do I need to be when?
Yeah.
And it takes a village to really be of a high level of service and take ownership on what's on your plate.
One last question. If you could give a piece of advice to a young agent just entering, or maybe they have a few years under their belt, who maybe looks up to your career, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that, find the people that you want to emulate their work habits, their vibe. I would also say there's no stupid question in our business. And sometimes there are people that don't make the time, but be drawn to those that invest and like to give it back. And you don't have to do this alone.
That's great advice. Well, thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure.
I appreciate your time, and I guess that's it.
See you soon.